Welcome to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. Here's your host, the Bitcoin Boomer himself, Gary Leland.
Yes, welcome to the Bitcoin Boomer Show, and I'm your host, Gary Leland, and I'm the boomer. I like Bitcoin, and I'm a boomer, so this is the Bitcoin Boomer Show. It's not that you have to be a boomer to enjoy the show. Might not hurt, but it's not necessary. I want to introduce you to Stephanie, my great producer here. Stephanie, you've kind of like set up the interview with Dom Bay today. What are your initial thoughts on today's show?
Yeah, so initial thoughts include he's a nonprofit, and I don't think I've seen that on the show before, a Bitcoin nonprofit. But I also saw that he was a firefighter, so very curious about that story and the nonprofit org that he runs.
We'll have to make sure and cover that. I know we've had a fireman on here before, or someone who used to be a fireman. He wasn't a fireman at the time of the show. But you might be correct. I don't know if we've had a nonprofit on here before. I kind of feel with as many guests as we've had that we almost had to. I just can't think of it, or it doesn't come to top of mind when we do the show here. But Dom Bay is out of Santa Monica. He orange pilled or actually talked the fire department had a vote, the union, as to whether they should put Bitcoin on their treasury. And they did, slowly but surely, and now they're into it. Now he's talking to other people across the country and other unions about adding Bitcoin to their treasury. So it's going to be quite an interesting story today. You know, one of the things we try to do on this show is to bring on great guests like Dom Bay. And every week I think we have a great guest that shows this in action. But we try to bring on great guests that can help explain and tell you about Bitcoin. That's all this show really is about, is educating people about Bitcoin. Whether you're a boomer, whether you're a millennial, whatever, I don't care. Trying to get my grandkids into Bitcoin now. They're only in 3rd and 5th grade, but working on it right now. We may have to give them an endowment to start them off. But anyone should start holding Bitcoin. Is number one, is it's a good investment, I believe. But by holding a little bit, even if it's a small amount, you start getting yourself educated on Bitcoin. And that small amount then again turns into a bigger amount. So please stay with us as we come back. We're going to go to a break, but as soon as we come back, we'll have Dom Bay on from Proof of Workforce. And he's going to tell us about orange pilling the firefighters union and the other people he's been working with. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsors. Please stay tuned. Bitcoin Boomer Show. As I said earlier, I'm your host, Gary Leland. And if this is your first time checking out the show, I hope you enjoy it and I hope you come back again. We have a great guest today, hitting a part of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin world we've never spoke about into any detail in the show. Today we have Dom Bay from Proof of Workforce. Dom, welcome to the show.
Gary, thanks for having me. Excited to be on.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. Dom spoke at BitBlock Boom this year, had a great talk. Before we go any further, Dom, give us a little short bio on who is Dom Bay.
Yeah, gosh, I'm still trying to figure that out. But a little bit about me. I'm a firefighter. Been a firefighter for 15 years, and I spent a lot of those years on the union board out in Santa Monica. So I was a president of the Santa Monica Firefighters Union. And after getting off the union board, I found Bitcoin in 2017. And so kind of transitioning off the union work, I started looking for intersections at, hey, where does Bitcoin and the workforce and unions, where does all that intersect? And as I kind of started looking into that, good things started happening, more doors started opening up. So I ended up founding Proof of Workforce, which is a 501c4 nonprofit that helps bring education-based Bitcoin adoption to workers, unions, organizations, pension funds, municipalities. And that is the journey that I am on now. And we're doing a ton of great work. We helped the Santa Monica firefighters become the first union in the United States to hold Bitcoin in self-custody on the balance sheet. And since then, many more have followed. We're working with many more across the country to learn about Bitcoin and find ways that it can serve the everyday worker.
Well, there's a lot to
And
go.
I live in Los Angeles. I'm still a firefighter. So.
You're still a firefighter. Hey, how'd you become a firefighter? Why'd you decide on that career?
Gosh, this could take the whole show alone.
Well, let's don't do that. Let's just.
I wasn't like, yeah. I wasn't someone that was like, oh, I had a dream to be a firefighter. I was actually going to go to law school. I took the LSAT and was getting ready to go to law school. And then I moved to LA and was like, okay, let me just hang around and see I got to get out of, I was from the Bay Area. So came to LA, met a group of firefighters and learned about the job and just was really drawn to the job. The more I learned about it, the more I just felt this is an awesome job. So ended up taking the test, was very fortunate to get hired, and it's just an incredible job. I could spend the whole episode talking about it, but what we do is a blessing, and I'm really blessed to be able to work in as a firefighter.
Sounds good. At least you enjoy what you do. I always tell my wife, if you enjoy what you do, it's not that hard of work. And fortunately, my whole life, I've been able to do what I like to do. It's changed quite a bit over the last 50 years or so, but it's still always something I like doing. You mentioned a few minutes ago you got into Bitcoin in 2017. That 2017, now here we're sitting 7 years later, but that was a large class of Bitcoiners in 2017. It feels like I meet more people from the 2017 class than from any other class. And you would think that would be the 2021 or 21, it got up to 69,000 the first time. You think that would be the biggest class, but I think, like I said, I think 2017 has more Bitcoiners I meet came from that class. How did you find out about Bitcoin exactly? After all that rambling.
Yeah, so... Yeah, no. It is a big class, 2017. So I was working at the time, and I ended up working this like special assignment where it was at a conference. I forget the name of the conference, but what I can tell you, Gary, is it was not like BitBlock Boom, a Bitcoin only conference. There was like a lot of different blockchain stuff going on, but there was a heavy group of Bitcoiners there. And so while I was working this thing, I ended up talking for hours upon hours to the people at the conference. And my biggest takeaway, knowing nothing, very like little about Bitcoin other than hearing about it, we all have that story, right? In like 2011, where someone told us to buy Bitcoin at $10. I have that one too, but I didn't know anything about it. But my takeaway was the conviction of this group is unrivaled in anything I've seen before. And so I left that conference like, I have to look into this thing and I have to take a good look. And so while I was much more of a passive participant, I think in 2017 for many years, that was my first entry into the space and learning about Bitcoin. And so that's how I got started.
So do you you sit back, you mentioned that at the beginning of that, how you have the typical story, everybody's got it. I could have got in at 10,000, or someone told me about it, or $10, or someone told me about it at $100 or $1,000. We know that same thing's going to happen, that people are going, yeah, I knew about it at 64,000, and I didn't get in till 200. What do you have to say to those people? I mean, because I know that people like you and I have spoke to are blue in the face. And you can't make a horse drink water. But gosh, doesn't it really, just the fact that you can help these people out so much, just by this little bit of information, if they'll just follow up with it with a little minimal amount. in these days and times, it's not like when you and I got into it 2017. No one hardly knew what Bitcoin was. I remember that Thanksgiving at 2017 at the Thanksgiving table explaining to everybody what Bitcoin was. And then by Christmas, it had gone through the moon. What do you think about this situation now? Is this always going to happen, you think? I know this is kind of be a stupid question, but it's just, you would think there'd be a point in time coming up soon that we would see everybody jumping in more than they are.
Yeah. What I say to people on that usually is, I think all of us have the things that we love and care about and learn about. And then there's a huge amount of things in the world that we just go, I'm not going to go past the surface on this. And what I tell people, and I think to your point, Gary, this will be true for a long, long time. It is worth the time to go past the surface on Bitcoin. You don't have to dive all in and go all in and, right, take a massive step in. But for God's sake, please just start past the surface and scratch a little bit beyond that, because we all have that story. Whether it was learning about Bitcoin in 2010 or 2011, or reading a headline about when the Silk Road stuff went down, at any given moment, if I just would have looked a little bit beyond the surface, I would have found Bitcoin. And naturally, once you find it, we all know what happens after that. You're going to go beyond that. So my message to those people is hey, Bitcoin was created for everyday people, especially for everyday workers. Don't put this on the shelf as something that you just need to read a headline or two. There's so much material. Just go past the surface for a few hours, and then the rest is on you. So I think there are going to still be people that don't do that. And, we know how that story plays out. They'll find it eventually, but man, it's for them, right? It was created. There is no restricted alpha list. There's no, insiders have access to this before folks. I mean, we're talking about folks who front ran some of the biggest financial institutions in the world, pension funds. This has never happened before. And yeah, the game has changed because some of these institutions are getting in. So you're not front running everyone anymore. But, there's still a lot of people that have not found this. So take the time, get past the surface and find at least the tip of the iceberg for Bitcoin.
Yeah, this is one of the few financial times that we've had where people could get ahead of something before the big companies did. Now the ETFs are coming out, but the rest of us have been in the Bitcoin for over 10 years. So this is an opportunity and it's still not passed. Let's talk about that more in a minute when we get back from this commercial break with Dambe, proof of workforce. And welcome back to the show, Bitcoin Boomer Show, with our special guest, Dambe from Proof of Workforce. Dambe, a minute ago, or in the last segment, you mentioned that you had basically orange-pilled the Santa Monica Fire Department into holding Bitcoin instead of actually holding physical Bitcoin. Can you share that with us? Tell us a little about that.
Yeah. So, this was in 2023, mid-year or earlier, spring of 2023. I was already starting to explore where does Bitcoin and workers and unions, where does that intersect, and done a lot of work in that space. I had an incredible trip to El Salvador with a few friends. We learned a ton while there. And while I was on the way back, I was like, I wonder, this would be so difficult to try to convince a union to hold Bitcoin. How do we do it? What's the holdup? And what I found that the holdup is, of course, is a lot of misinformation, a lot of fear, a lot of emotional stuff with Bitcoin. We have to remember, for 10 years, mainstream media hammered Bitcoin, focusing on every negative thing that could possibly happen. Meanwhile, us in the Bitcoin space, we see all these positive things that don't get covered. So I came up with a plan for not necessarily the Santa Monica firefighters, but any union, how to get off zero, how to take that first step and step past the surface and do it the right way, right? Through self-custody, with education, and get everyone involved, not just a top-down decision. So I brought it to my union at the time where I had served for 10 years, so I had a good relationship. And I just let them know, hey, I see this as a huge opportunity for a union to basically make a historical step in being the first union to add Bitcoin to the balance sheet and self-custody. Here's the plan. If you guys don't want to do this, I totally understand. And in fact, I almost was like, I prefer not to do it at my home union, right? Because things, it's a lot to put yourself on the line. But they were really supportive. We brought it to the membership. Our membership's amazing. They approved it, I think, at like 89%, this first measure to get off zero. Then we had a bunch of education for several months. And then it was the members that came forward and said, we want to take a more meaningful step into Bitcoin, that's what you want, right, Gary? Like any organization that's membership based, you want the members to come collectively and say, we want to do this, because when the going gets tough, that's the only thing that's going to keep you in Bitcoin long term. You have to have a top-down approach. People will bail and jump ship at the first sign of danger or turbulence. So it was amazing how it all unfolded. It's been amazing to watch the impact with the membership and then see this kind of spread to other unions and them showing an interest.
So I have to imagine that you have a multi-sig wallet of some type. You just don't have Joe over there in accounting holding a treasure with Bitcoin on it. So is that what y'all are using? Multi-sig, and how many SIGs? I mean, I'm not trying to dox you or anything, but I'm trying to give people an idea if they are listening. There's more than just, you're not buying, if you're a union, you're not buying Bitcoin and putting it on a thumb drive and putting it in the safe. There are things set in place to help make that more secure and easier.
Yeah, our initial step was simply a very small dollar amount, which I always recommend organizations like do something that's so insignificant that if it were to be lost, that the organization, it's not going to impact our organization. So we literally had $1 per member get off zero, which allowed us to explore self-custody through a very simple wallet, right? Single sig self-custody, because, right, that's when you want to make your mistakes and learn. But we were very diligent, so there were no mistakes. And then from then, multi-sig is the natural progression. And we're looking at different things for long-term setup, but the multi-sig fits very well with any union organization because they already have a treasurer. They already have a backup signer for like how they manage their bank account. So there's multiple signatories and then having a backup. So a 2 or 3 works great. And again, depending on how much more invested a group becomes, then you strengthen that multi-sig setup. But a 2 of 3 with a backup, there's tons of custodial options. I won't necessarily dox like the exact setup, but 2 or 3 works great because the plumbing is already there within an organization to make that happen. So
you said you started with 1 Bitcoin or $1 per firefighter. And that was in 2023, I think you said, right? So
that was just around July, I think.
So I guess the members have been adding to that since then. And what, do they have to have a vote, or does the treasurer work on it? I'm getting into like details many people might not care about, but I care. I'm interested. So how's that work? Is it like,
the
people go, okay, we're gonna have a vote. Who wants to put in some more Bitcoin? I mean, how's that work?
Yeah, any monetary step within an organization like that, there's thresholds and it requires a majority vote from the members. In a union, the members have all the power. It's not the board. The members can go to any meeting and go, hey, we want to do this and we want to make an action item to vote now. So, and especially, I'll just say this, with Bitcoin, something new like this, even if your organization for example, us for a $1, they could have taken the money out of the fund and not gotten approval. But do you want to do that with something like Bitcoin that's new and prone to attacks from mainstream media and has some challenges as far as like misinformation? No. You want people on board. That's gonna make you successful long term. So we did everything membership vote. And again, our first measure, get off zero for $1, passed at 90%. I always joke around, and I joked at the conference, we can't even get an approval that high on like coffee, voting which coffee we're going to drink. So that was a hugely significant, well-supported measure. And then from there, the members came back and said, hey, we want to actually put this on our reserve fund and hold it as a reserve asset long term. And we want to make it meaningful. So we have a Bitcoin. We're whole coiners now. What started as just $1 per member, it's more significant. And I think that's the best way to do it because you want to have that bottom up support and you want people to truly understand the why. Otherwise, again, you're going to get things that happen where people get emotional and they come to a meeting and go, nope, we want out of this thing. We don't like it. We don't understand it. I just saw that the day after we did the $1 per member, the SEC sued Coinbase and Binance, right? The two biggest exchanges. So imagine if we had gone in more meaningful, like the fear people would have been walking in with, like, wait, I just saw in the news this thing that we got into is it's not good, right? The SEC is going after them. So this is all, I laid this out in a Substack that I wrote, an article, and it was like, it was called How to Orange Pill Your Organization. And I go step by step, everything on why. And I always try to make things available to people through proof of workforce so that they don't need our organization to bring Bitcoin to their organization.
Well, you've got a really good point there because, if you have someone like, I'll use my wife as an example. She's known we've had Bitcoin for quite a while, but she didn't start following it until back when it went up to 69 the first time. Oh my gosh. Then when it dropped, she was having a heart attack because she'd never seen that before. In other words, you and I had seen that several times. So neither one of us probably were in too big a state of shock. We knew what was going to happen. We knew it was going to drop a certain percentage, which really was not as bad a percentage as I've seen it drop before. And then we knew it was going to go up. But I went from the hero to the chump for a while there. And I can imagine if you had a lot of your union members, jumping in a big way, oh my gosh, you wouldn't be dealing with just my wife. You'd be dealing with 50 people like my wife, So yeah, I definitely see that's a good point to go slowly.
Gary, worse.
Worse. Well, when we get back, we're going to talk about how bad that can get. That's for sure. So join us after this commercial break for some more about Dambe, about unions holding Bitcoin, and we'll talk to you in a few minutes. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. Today's guest is Dambe with Proof of Workforce. Okay, Dambe. Now we've gone over, I guess it's the Santa Monica Fire Department, if I'm correct.
It's the firefighters union.
Okay. Are there other firefighter unions that you've gone to? Because I would think that'd be your more natural approach to expand this, would be to go to other unions where you might have known some fellow members or they were in the same situation before you go to the auto workers union. So have you been able to expand this into other unions?
Yeah. So, again, through being able to being on shows, and for example, when you had me come speak at BitBlock Boom, it allows us to get our word out there, and naturally people reach out. So shortly following our, step into Bitcoin, I got a call from a Bitcoiner up in Vacaville. The Vacaville firefighters became the second union to put Bitcoin in self-custody on the balance sheet. And then I got connected with someone from Humboldt Bay firefighters, and they became the third. Since then, now again, am talking to the firefighters naturally because, we're a tight knit group. They reach out, but I am talking to other unions. And the more I can get our word out there that Proof of Workforce is a nonprofit, no cost. Folks don't usually understand. Like when I go to talk to unions or orgs, they go, "What's the catch? Like where do you guys make the profit?" And I'm like, "We don't. We just bring you these measures and tell you why we think it's important and good for your members, and then we help you along the way." But I want organizations to decide how they move forward, right? This is the whole point of Bitcoin, is that you don't need third-party trust. It's you empower people and then they walk the path themselves and they learn themselves. So yeah, we have been able to reach out to many more unions. One of the things we're trying to work on is getting the word out there, because we know that there's Bitcoiners in every organization and every workplace. It's how do we get them to learn that Proof of Workforce exists and that we're there to help them make an attempt to bring Bitcoin to their organization. So that takes resources, and we're trying to get the word out there. But having us on shows like this, having us at, BitBlock Boom was huge for us. In fact, I remember someone from the crowd even reached out and was like, "Hey, would you go visit my union?" And I said, 100%, like just say when. And so I'm following up with that individual. This is how we, bring that forward and help these groups find Bitcoin earlier, sooner than later. Which, again, depending on how you're looking at it, are we still sooner than later? I don't know, but like you said, Gary, the time is always now. The time to get off zero with Bitcoin is always right now.
And I find that the people even who tell me, "I'm going to wait for it to do this. I'm going to wait for it to get to $15,000. That was one of the last ones that I remember. And then I see him walking in the street, my neighbor, and I go, "Hey, Bitcoin's back up to 60. Did you buy any when it got down to 15? He goes, nah, I didn't. I go, so that they really have a hard time pulling that trigger. But right now, we're in kind of a different situation in Bitcoin. And I'm curious how this affects what you're doing, I guess, because like yesterday, the Wisconsin retirement system reported that it put over 162 million. That's 162 million into spot Bitcoin ETFs. That's a retirement system. So the same thing could happen to unions that are holding Bitcoin. Do you find, or I guess, what are your thoughts on ETFs, people wanting to go down that route instead of holding their own Bitcoin? I know that's a lot easier. I mean, I know that's why some boomers are getting into it. They already have their money with Fidelity or BlackRock, and they can just roll over 1 or 2% into Bitcoin ETFs. How's that affecting what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so two things on that. First, I don't know if you know this, Gary, but the show I do with Hoffa called the Nakamoto Gauntlet, we had 2 members of the Wisconsin Professional Firefighters. One of those members was a board of trustee on the Wisconsin retirement system. We had them on the show 8 months ago and set them up with a pretty great education on Bitcoin for pensions, et cetera. So I'll get into that in a second, because I want to answer your question about the ETF or self-custody. I always start organizations with self-custody in a small amount. And here's why. And I'm not talking about pensions. I'm talking about unions, which are different. There's a union that has their own budget and they take care of their members. That's separate from the pension. The reason I start them with self-custody is because I believe it is critically important to learn about Bitcoin as it was created and as close to its original system, its network, how it interacts. I think that is critically important, because from there, you can always decide to invest in an ETF. But if you don't know the difference, if you don't understand what it means to truly hold your Bitcoin, if you don't know what it means to have that in self-custody and feel that security that you have something that can't be taken from you, you don't understand the pros and cons and the whys. So I think it's always great to start with self-custody. Trust me, if I could get a pension fund to actually start from self-custody, I'd have them do that too. But obviously that's not really like realistic as far as how they operate, and they don't have the infrastructure for that. But I think it's possible too that they could. So for people that are thinking, well, I just want to do the ETF because it's easy. I still say you still have to do the work, scratch the surface, and learn about Bitcoin because, right, isn't that what we all want to do? We want to make conscious decisions for which we know what the impacts are and why. And even if you end up choosing the ETF, you will at least have learned self-custody to make that conscious choice to go, okay, I learned it, I played with it, I held it in my hand. I'm going to go with the ETF because I just don't want to deal with it. That's fine. The other side of I'm just doing the ETF and I don't care to learn about this thing. I think they're missing out on one of the most valuable parts of Bitcoin aside, right? Forget about the price. It's what the protocol is, what the network is, what Bitcoin truly is.
So when everybody pitched in their dollar basically, and you first started, was that a hard road to hoe on getting that dollar? I know everybody agreed, but I imagine a lot of them agreed. So what the hell? It's $1. Let's go for it. I mean, was that a long process of education just to get that dollar?
We had a meeting. There was tons of Q&A. There was good Q&A following. We put it to like a union-wide vote so everyone could weigh in. The questions were great. And that's why I love yes, some people came in and were like, why just $1? It seems like this is kind of why are we doing just $1? It seems not meaningful. We should do more. Gary, that's a great place. I love hearing that. Like people were coming in being like, why aren't we doing more of this? Instead of like, what are we doing? This is crazy. This is going to ruin our organization, right? So you want to start from that place where people are looking at it like a silly, very non-threatening thing, because that's how you learn. And I mentioned it at your conference. When we were in the conference, I said, if I pulled the fire alarm and tried to teach the crowd about, physics, who's going to sit there and go, as there's a fire in the corner or something, not even pull the fire alarm. Let's say I started a real fire and they're going to sit there and just go, this is interesting what Dom's saying about physics. I'll say, no, everyone's bolting for the door. So you have to create that environment to learn. The process was good, tons of good feedback, a lot of good involvement, great questions. And there wasn't the fear or emotional side that was attached to it. So it was a very good process with a lot of engagement.
So do you have to this day some of the people in the union going, hey, how come we're just holding this Bitcoin? How come we're not holding Ethereum or Solana or whatever the menu of the day is? Do you have a lot of that come up? Is there anything in there so that doesn't happen? And they go, hey, we're going to throw everything into Ethereum. And you got about 50 seconds on this.
Okay, so I get a lot of questions at work and people are exploring all different stuff. Of course, there's a few people finding other, projects, which I tell them, hey, is Bitcoin for me. I think the group understands because their education was so solid out of the gate, they understand what Bitcoin is and what it represents. So we don't have them kind of saying, let's get into this, let's get into that. And that's why the education's so key at the start. Because once they understand it, as we know, Gary, like they're going to focus on Bitcoin and they will know the difference.
Okay, well, we'll be right back with more with Dom Bay, Bitcoin, and the Santa Monica Fire Department. Be right back. And welcome back to the Bitcoin Boomer Show with our special guest, Dom Bay. I think in our first segment, Dom Bay, you had mentioned that when you got everybody chipped in their dollar, y'all got into Bitcoin. I don't want to make that sound trivial when I'm saying that, but that's basically just the easiest way to say that. That it kind of opened up a rabbit hole or people thoughts and things. So has that continued, or is it pretty much just it's old hat now, we're buying Bitcoin from here on out? Or is that conversation constantly going still as people, do your members come up and go, hey, I learned about this thing called dollar cost averaging. Can you tell me about that? What kind of relationship is going on there, I guess?
Yeah, the best way I can describe this, Gary, is that when I walk into the station, I set a timer into like how long someone will approach me about something Bitcoin related. And usually I don't get further than 60 seconds to 2 minutes. That's real. So there is a ton of conversation. Again, The reason I believe our mission at Proof of Workforce is so important is because we're trying to bring Bitcoin to organizations that once they adopt Bitcoin, then signal to their members that, hey, this thing is okay and it's worth learning about. And the result from that is beautiful. It's this blossoming of curiosity, engagement. I cannot overstate this effect enough. So when you see, the Wisconsin Pension Fund adding Bitcoin to the balance sheet, and they did 162 million, which is meaningful, but only 0.1% of their portfolio. The signaling that it sends to those 700,000 participants that participate with the Wisconsin Pension Fund. Watch what will happen to those participants. They will start to learn about Bitcoin. And that's where we have to come in and kind of grab them and corral them and go, look, these are great resources to learn about Bitcoin the right way. So long-winded answer to your question, Gary. Yes, it has continued and accelerated. And I would say, close to half of our membership now engages with Bitcoin or holds it in some manner, which is a massive number when you think about it. So this is what I think forms the broader adoption that is very badly needed. We see tons of stuff with Bitcoin getting attacked in the mainstream media by like the federal government. Those attacks can only happen when the crowd is thin for those who are willing to, prioritize Bitcoin as their primary issue. We want to change that at Proof of Workforce. We want to bring Bitcoin to organizations. We want people to find the best parts about Bitcoin and then prioritize Bitcoin as well as some of their top 3 issues. Because when that happens, right, like the attacks become that it's a waste of time. You're not going to, it's going to be too many people will love it and support it for it to be attacked.
So many of your members then are just buying Bitcoin on their own. So they're not just sitting back going, oh, we got this thing's happening. And as they're getting educated, all of a sudden, you'll go to work one day and someone will go, hey, I bought $100 worth of Bitcoin last night, or I started DCAing last night. So that's kind of like a little fire going there, spreading out in all directions. So
100%. And they're asking, it was great. It was great during the halving. Tons of people were coming up going like, hey, I've been reading about the halving and how it's going to impact the supply issuance and the miners. And you just got to sit back and go, sweet. Like, let's talk shop. It's great that you're asking these questions. And I really think it's a testament to that formula on how to bring it about.
Let's go to proofofworkforce.org. That's the website that y'all have built for this. And I notice you have a lot of things on here, like you have resources, like you can send a letter straight from here to your union or to your pension fund and things like that. You can donate to the cause. Let's talk about that real quick, about what people can expect to find at the site and what kind of help they can get if they need it from visiting the site.
Yeah. So, Gary, and this is where I definitely slide into the boomer group. When it comes to website stuff, it's always a work in progress trying to make the website functional. I got some help. The tab that you can see on the screen, open source resources, that's something that we're always adding to. So whether it's letters to your pension fund, asking them to explore Bitcoin, letters to a union board, asking them to consider a Bitcoin initiative. We have the survey that we used to get it approved by the membership. I want to put all the resources here. So again, if you want to do this and bring it to your organization, you don't need us, but we're here for you directly. And like I said, I'll travel anywhere in the country to help someone trying to bring Bitcoin to their organization. Done deal. And I do that regularly. So we want to make these resources available. As far as like the fundraising, that's something that I kind of struggle with because I don't fundraise at all from individuals because I really believe individuals should be stacking Bitcoin as much as they possibly can within like responsibility. The main way people can help is bring our nonprofit to businesses in Bitcoin and let them know that we are working 24/7 to bring a broader adoption to Bitcoin and that it's good for them. And we get a lot of our support from businesses in the space that maybe can make it a part of their budget to expend contributions to proof of workforce so that we can scale our operation and continue to, orange pill a very broad group, which is the workforce. So that's the way people can help. I never ask people to donate their hard-earned sats individually to us. I understand it's tough times, we got inflation, but if you can bring awareness to our organization through either hitting up some of your favorite Bitcoin companies saying, would you guys consider supporting proof of workforce? We think they're doing really important work. Which, by the way, Gary, it's a huge benefit to them, right? So you can imagine if a union, gets onto Bitcoin and their members follow, right? All those members then want to discover hardware wallets, seed plates. They become users of the Bitcoin network and all the great businesses that we know that exist. So that's a natural avenue. So that's one way people can help. And then the second way is bringing awareness of our organization to people in the workforce that whether it's unions, workforce organizations, pensions, municipalities. We work with all of them on initiatives. We just need you to let them know that we exist and that we cost $0 to them. So those are the two main ways people can help.
Okay, and now we're running out of time here, so let's go straight to where can people follow you, follow Proof of Workforce, give everybody the details on that information.
Yeah, so my Twitter account is at Baywatch1, and that's BEIWATCH1. That's my personal account. There's a story behind that. It's not Baywatch from the show. That's my name. We'll talk about that next time. And then www.proofofworkforce.org. That's our website. And then the Twitter for Proof of Workforce is at WorkforceBTC. So any support that y'all can follow, like some of the stuff we're putting out, and then share some of the things we're doing with other people in the space, that would be huge and means everything to us. And of course, if there's conferences we're talking about, Gary, BitBlock Boom was like unbelievable experience for me, and I made so many connections and relationships there. People that are willing to support our work. Like, I can't thank you enough for having us, because it was a really special conference to be at and present at.
Well, you certainly had a good talk, that was for sure. And we had a good crowd this year, and looking forward to next year for sure. But yeah, you have, obviously you are the first union to hold Bitcoin. So you're doing something that's not the norm, which is, I salute you for that. It's the more and more people we get into Bitcoin, the better we are. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you taking the time, and I've enjoyed the conversation. And it was nice having you at BitBlock Boom, because I kind of felt like I got to know you a little bit more than any other event I've seen you at. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you on the show again. Anything else, last words? You got 10 seconds if you do.
I just want to thank all the listeners. Gary, I want to thank you and everyone working on the show. Awesome to be on, and let's keep it going. We keep working, and every day we're building awareness and helping people find Bitcoin. So,
okay, we'll be right back. And welcome back to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. I hope you've enjoyed today's discussion. Our goal here is really just to help teach you and educate you about Bitcoin. We're not selling any Bitcoin. Stephanie, what'd you think of Don Bay today? Our producer here always has some great input.
I don't know about great, but I was quite impressed about his very financially friendly approach to the $1 with the union kind of investment into Bitcoin. That's a really cool strategy, because I know people are frozen and paralyzed with do I just start slow, or do I do 1% or $1, or can I go all in, which is a bigger threshold to cross when it's that kind of overwhelming thinking?
Well, actually, it worked pretty good for them. Not only did they start with, I should have asked how many firefighters. I don't think we ever asked that, how many were in the union, but I certainly wouldn't think it'd be a gigantic amount. But now they started from $1 per person put into, they have a whole Bitcoin at least. And I'm sure they're above that now. So, and the people are starting to buy their own Bitcoin now because they feel like they've got some skin in the game. They're finding out about it. So yeah, that was a very good point. Hey, I do want to thank everybody for joining the show. Please check out our conference we host every year. It's in Dallas this year, bitblockboom.com. That's next April, first week of April, so it's quite a ways away. Also, check out the book I helped write with some friends of mine, Bitcoin and the American Dream. Bitcoin and the American Dream. You can find that at bitblockboom.com/books. Also, want to make sure you know about the satscardshop.com. Sat cards are a great way to give Bitcoin as gifts. If you want to give it as a stocking stuffer or give some Bitcoin in a Christmas card, Sats cards are the great way to do it. So check out my site, satscardshop.com. And also, please follow me on Twitter. You can follow me at Gary Leland, or you can follow the BitBlockBoom site at twitter.com/BitBlockBoom. So twitter.com/Gary Leland and twitter.com/Gary BitBlockBoom. And then we also have the BitBlockBoom meetup group here in Dallas, Fort Worth, usually in Dallas. So go to meetup.com/BitBlockBoom and find out what we're doing here in the Dallas scene. That's it for today's show. So I do appreciate you joining me, Stephanie, my producer, and our special guest, Dom Bay, for a wonderful show today. And I hope we see you next week. And do tell your friends about the Bitcoin Boomer Show. Like I said, we don't have any Bitcoin to sell you. We just want to educate you. And so until next week, have a good one. See you then, and stack those sats.